China probably carried out one of their biggest anti-corruption measures, or I guess disciplinary measures is a better way of putting it, to date. The Chinese Ministry of National Defense announced that the Central Committee of the party has launched an investigation into General Zhang Yuxi, Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission, and General Liu Jinli, Chief of the Joint Staff of the Central Military Commission and former commander of the PLA ground forces, in connection with alleged serious violations of discipline and the law. Both are now under investigation for serious violations of discipline and the law, CCP code, for, they made some mistakes. Okay, so this is, these are not small individuals in China. These are two of the biggest military brass that Beijing has at their disposal, and now they are being investigated. Okay, publicly. This is a public story. So this is exactly what the United States needs. We were all sold a lie for a very long period of time that, China is not economically prosperous. Sure, yeah, maybe they lifted, 900 million people out of extreme poverty over the last 40 years. Sure, maybe like all of their major cities, their second-tier cities, third-tier cities, and fourth-tier cities, and fifth-tier cities all look way better than our, most prosperous major cities in America. But look, Donald Trump is going to take care of it with the trade war. We know the first trade war didn't go so well, but this time we've got the secret weapon. What that secret weapon is, I don't really know, because Trump caved immediately to China when China said that they were going to withhold rare earth minerals. Now, China didn't even say that they were going to withhold all rare earth minerals to the United States. They just said, most of them, the ones you use for your military stuff, yeah, we're going to withhold those, okay? Civilian use stuff, you can still get that, but the military stuff, yeah, we're going to withhold that. So the problem with that is, yes, there are other countries, Kazakhstan being one of them. Kazakhstan supplies the world with 40% of its uranium and also a great deal of copper ore, and other minerals. But the problem with the other countries that supply minerals is they just supply minerals. China controls 98% of the world's processing facilities of these mineral compounds. So that's the real problem with the U.S. trying to pick a fight with China, is no matter what, they still need their minerals that they buy from whichever country to be processed, okay? Now, despite the fact, again, that Trump did claim victory, even though he backed down immediately once that was threatened, he claimed victory. He claimed that China was getting wrecked. China was getting mogged. Turns out China mogged Trump. China's economy grew 5% in 2025 despite the trade war with the United States. We saw the same exact thing take place during the first trade war. China's economy grew then by leaps and bounds, okay? Not only that, we also have seen that China's electricity generation now is 40% more than the US and EU combined. And if you know anything about anything, you know that electricity generation is the number one determining factor in a country's standard of living and ultimately their future, their level of production, their economy, all these things and more. Because electrical generation is what dictates human life. It's what dictates what type of quality of life you can have, how many things you can build, how many things you can produce. Whereas in Ukraine and the EU is running out of their gas reserves again for like the fourth year in a row, and they don't know if they're going to keep grandma alive during a cold extended winter. And Ukraine is 60% of Ukraine is without electricity, more hours of the day than they more hours of the day they don't have than they do. They have no electric substations left in the country, so on and so forth. China generating more electricity than the US and European Union combined by 40%. Insane statistic, okay? Especially when you take into account that 70 years ago, if you looked at China and you told them that China would be in the position they are today, also, GDP, purchasing power parity, that's like, what is it, $5-7 trillion dollars more than the United States' GDP, PPP? You'd be looked at like you're a crazy lunatic, okay? But that is exactly where China is today. Now, Trump did say that he was going to undercut China through a myriad of attacks: an attack on Venezuela, an attack on Iran, an attack on Russia via sanctions and preventing China to do business with Russia, right? Let's see how that has worked out, since the trade war didn't work out all that well. Now in Venezuela, we see that Vital Group has offered Venezuelan cargoes to Chinese buyers at further discounts of around $5 a barrel to ICE Brent, testing Asia's appetite for the South American nation's benchmark heavy sour crude. The cargoes would be delivered in the second half of April. This is brand new news. So they're giving further discounted oil now to China from Venezuela. They're at least offering that. One of the other threats that Trump made was cutting off NVIDIA chips to China. And China said, okay, we'll just produce our own. Now, there's an interesting a bit with the Chinese microchip sector. Of course, they want to heavily invest, and they are heavily investing to create their own microchips that are going to probably in short order outpace and outprice the NVIDIA chips. But due to the fact that China does not have the highest of quality NVIDIA chips, they're using, lower grade chips, but still able to operate at the same pace as their Western competitors who do have NVIDIA chips. What that means is China has actually developed superior technology on the back end. Obviously, this is a very layman explanation, but on the back end, the actual technology that they are running on their hardware is superior to the United States. So when coupled with the superior chips, the NVIDIA chips, they're actually in total outpacing the US and their output. But even that hasn't really stopped China because, we discussed this. David Sachs says, the Chinese don't even want the NVIDIA chips anymore. Co-founder of Anthropic has called out Trump's policy allowing NVIDIA to sell high-speed chips to China. I think it's crazy, like selling nuclear weapons to North Korea and bragging, oh yeah, Boeing made the case. But the truth is that China doesn't even want them anymore. They are rejecting these NVIDIA chips. They have now put out a ban. Initially, they rolled out a slight ban on NVIDIA chips being used in the country. They said, if you're a startup company in China and you can make the case to the appropriate authorities that you need these NVIDIA chips and you need them to be cheap, then we'll allow you to continue to buy them for a defined amount of time, right? Now they put a blanket ban out. So no NVIDIA chips going to China. And this is like David Sachs and the Trump administration. They think that this is their big win over China, that they can withhold or allow NVIDIA chips to enter into China. Now China says, we don't even want them, okay? So I guess it's not really like Boeing selling a nuclear weapon to China. At the same time, Russia and China are making massive gold purchases, driving up the price, and Putin ended with a $216 billion profit. Russia has gained more than $216 billion from rising gold prices since the SMO began in Ukraine, offsetting much of the roughly $300 billion in sovereign assets frozen abroad. Probably a good decision, right? We all knew the sanctions would come. We know that this would devalue the dollar. And we also knew, of course, that when Trump began to attack China and also the EU, that treasury bonds would be dumped. And that is exactly what happened. A lot of people don't want to keep dollar assets in their reserves, in their foreign reserves now, because they see what happens to Russia when there's a geopolitical dispute. They just get billions of dollars frozen in their foreign reserves. So you now see a lot of countries saying, not only are we going to lessen our dollar reserves, we're also going to begin to do trade in domestic currency. So whether that's rupee to ruble trade, whether that is ruble to yuan trade, Brazilian real to yuan, so on and so forth. This is becoming an ever increasingly prevalent trend in the ever shifting multipolar world, okay? This has caused US dollar share of global foreign currency reserves to be at their lowest point since the turn of the century. Not too good for the Federal Reserve, not too good for Wall Street, not too good for the military industrial complex. Most indicators for the U.S. are not looking good. Dollar index is crashing, and this is only the beginning. Correct. This is the beginning of the end. Okay. It will take time, but this is the beginning of the end. Now, China at the same time is just continuing to mog, absolutely. In China's Shenzhen, a food bank initiative provides surplus food to people in need using smart technology. Users can collect food 24/7 from about 20 different vending machines around the Fujian district. China also is having record trade with North Korea, up 25% from last year, hitting 2.74 billion in 2025. December alone saw $310 million in exchanges between China and North Korea, the highest monthly level since November of 2017. And Russian gas exports to China have soared as well. This is before even they have finalized the massive new pipelines that are going to be introduced. The Power of Siberia 2 pipeline has yet to go into effect, but already we're seeing massive Russian gas exports to China. So basically, everything has failed. All of the attacks have failed. And the reason why I tell you all of that is because China is winning right now. This is what winning looks like. This is what success looks like. I have discussed on multiple occasions the years-long, decades-long effort by Xi Jinping to uproot corruption in his country. He has a name for it. It's like the Tigers and Flies anti-corruption campaign, and now they're also going for ants or something, as they call it, like small-scale corruption with small-scale actors. And people in the West try to make this seem like a bad thing. Like when they see like, oh, there's corruption in government in China and they're giving people death sentences for it. Oh, there's like a, bank executive that, state-run bank that was doing, $20 million in corruption. Now they're getting a death sentence. People say this, China's so corrupt and this is proof of it. Actually, no, that's proof that China is dealing with their corruption problem. Every country has corruption problems. Doesn't matter how big, how small, pro-Western, multipolar, doesn't matter, right? What I'm going to show you now is absolutely insane. We have now seen news today that China probably carried out one of their biggest anti-corruption measures, or I guess disciplinary measures is a better way of putting it, to date. The Chinese Ministry of National Defense announced that the Central Committee of the party has launched an investigation into General Zhang Yuxi, Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission, and General Liu Jinli, Chief of the Joint Staff of the Central Military Commission and former commander of the PLA Ground Forces, in connection with alleged serious violations of discipline and the law. Both are now under investigation for serious violations of discipline and the law, CCP code, for, they made some mistakes. Okay, so these are not small individuals in China. These are two of the biggest military brass that Beijing has at their disposal, and now they are being investigated, okay, publicly. This is a public story. So this is exactly what the United States needs. We need to learn from countries like China. We need to learn from their economic success, yes, but also their anti-corruption measures and the success that they've had there. Because if China were to be dealt the cards that we see in the U.S. Congress or the Trump administration, I mean, like all of them would be given very severe, indictments for their corruption. It's legalized bribery, it's corruption, it's foreign bribery and corruption, it's insider trading, it's pedo trafficking networks. It's literally so in your face that you cannot keep up with it. And that's the whole idea here. So for anyone who tells you, China's so corrupt, Russia, it's like, well, actually, the whole notion that you hear about corruption being prosecuted and people being dealt with for their corruption is actually proof that they're doing something about the corruption, which exists in every country. China is winning, all right? And like, they understand, I guess, maybe in the West, this can be spun as some sort of a reputational damage. In my eyes, this is proof that they're actually trying to fix the problem. And I think it's really just, it shows the true light and character, moral, lack of any spine in the United States that we think that this is somehow bad or something to make fun of. No, I think this is very good. And I think that America needs to learn from China. So salute to Xi Jinping prosecuting the highest military brass in China, some of the highest military brass in China. Not, I guess, for corruption here, but for discipline and law violations. They are being investigated. Okay, so let's learn from China. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.